agenda, as you will see. So best to just kick off, I think. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to various colleagues from the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People and also the Global Ocean Alliance. We are delighted to be hosting this webinar and have some wonderful experts here to speak today. My name is Jess Dark. I'm part of the UK Marine team who lead the Global Ocean Alliance. My colleague Farah is also on the call. We're part of the same team. And I will just pass over to Des Moines from the High Ambition Coalition to introduce them.
Thank you very much, Jess, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this webinar that the HAC has co-organized with the Global Ocean Alliance. And I would like to welcome you from the HAC. I have my colleagues here, Maggie Brunet and Valentina Oben, also attending this workshop, this webinar. Dedicated to marine and coastal conservation to implement 30 by 30. As you know, in this 30 by 30 target, we have that global ambition to protect 30% of ocean by 2030. And as we gather today, we are reminded that our oceans are under mounting pressure from, climate change to overexploitation of marine resources to the growing demographic pressure as well. And those challenges are complex and interconnected, but so too are the solutions. Today, we are very delighted to have those four speakers with us today. We have Lauren Wenzel, we have Lasse Korvinen from Finland, Anjani Ganassi from the Trinidad and Tobago, and Cesar Celi from Colombia, sharing the expertise, their experiences from their countries. Thank you so much for coming today, sharing what you've learned over the past years and sharing that with us today. But we are also looking forward to hearing more from other countries as well about your solutions for coastal and marine focus to implement Target 3. Thank you again for being here today. Thank you for your commitment to advance the marine aspect of 30 by 30. And I hope we're going to have great discussion today. Thank you again, and back to you, Jess.
Thank you very much, Des Moines. So just a brief summary of what this webinar will cover. We will look at the key challenges and solutions in MPA implementation, marine protected areas. This will also offer an opportunity to learn from our country experiences from the experts Des Moines had just introduced, from different stages of the marine protected area process. And then also we'll have an interactive part of the webinar, and we really hope to strengthen our practical knowledge through peer-to-peer exchange in that part of the session in breakout groups. I won't go through exactly the full agenda. Des Moines just introduced the experts, but we're delighted to have them here. And Lauren Wenzel from the IUCN Protected Area and Climate Change Group will introduce our first session in a moment. Please do participate as fully as you can, particularly in the breakout rooms. There will be an interactive segment after the breakout rooms to summarise the rich discussions that we hope to have. And this will then hopefully be available afterwards as well. And just for your information, there is interpretation available. There's a button at the bottom of the screen, and that is available from English into French and into Spanish. I think that is just until the end of the country case studies rather than in the breakout rooms themselves. So with that, and I think just about on time, I will hand over to Lauren Wenzel. Thank you so much, Lauren.
All right. Thank you very much, Jess. And I'm just going to go ahead here and share my screen. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you today and to to share some ideas with you to get this webinar started. So there, are you seeing it all right?
Yeah, we can see that, Lauren. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So yes, my job today is just to give you a bit of an overview around issues facing MPAs and the global target. And I think, as we all know, MPAs protect valuable places in the ocean that provide ecological, social, economic, and cultural benefits. And that's kind of a short way of stating a lot of the language that is in Target 3. And what you can see here in Target 3, this highlighted red text that really talks about not only are we trying to protect at least 30% of coastal and marine areas, as well as terrestrial areas, but those areas that are particularly important for biodiversity and ecosystem services. And we want to ensure that they are effectively conserved and managed in ecologically representative, well-connected, and equitable systems of marine protected areas and other effective conservation measures. So I think that language is very familiar to us, but it really brings home the qualitative aspect of the 30 by 30 goal. It's not just about achieving the 30% coverage, but the quality of the areas that are protected. So, and again, we know that we're facing a biodiversity crisis, and I just wanted to share with you a little bit from the Global Assessment on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services from 2019 that really did a comprehensive look at the challenges of biodiversity globally. And some of the findings were that loss of coastal habitats and coral reefs are reducing coastal protection and increasing the risk of floods and hurricanes to life and property for 100 to 300 million people living within coastal flood zones, that we've lost about half the coral cover of coral reefs since the 1870s, with accelerating losses in recent decades. And that in marine ecosystems, direct exploitation, such as fishing, has had the largest impact, followed by changes in land use and sea use. But that climate change is also a direct driver that is increasingly exacerbating the impact of other drivers on nature and human well-being. The ocean has absorbed over 90% of the excess heat from rising greenhouse gas emissions and over 30% of our carbon dioxide emissions. And that has resulted in widespread damage to marine ecosystems through warming and acidification. So we recognize that the primary purpose of establishing an MPA is for the long-term conservation of biodiversity. And when countries and communities are planning MPAs, they should be identifying areas with high biodiversity as well as other ecosystem benefits. But we also recognize that MPAs can have other really important co-benefits, like helping to ensure food security. In some MPAs, fishing is allowed and people can fish and gather within the MPA. In other MPAs that may not allow fishing, they can generate spillover and serve as sources of additional fish to nearby areas that can then sustain local fisheries. MPAs also protect marine life that is a major tourism attraction in some areas, such as whale watching, that helps support coastal economies. And coastal habitats that are protected by MPAs protect shorelines from storms and coastal flooding by acting as a buffer that reduces wave action and absorbs floodwaters. And then lastly, blue carbon habitats, such as seagrasses, mangroves, and salt marshes, pull carbon out of the atmosphere and store it for decades to centuries in coastal soil and plant matter. So protecting these places prevents additional carbon emissions, and restoring them can reduce carbon emissions. So blue carbon is just one reason why it's so important to integrate our climate and conservation efforts, such as including conservation of coastal habitats in nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. So globally, we have protected about 8.3% of marine and coastal areas toward our 30% goal. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the spatial coverage is just one part of the goal. Nearly all of the areas in MPAs and OECMs are in national waters. 19% of national waters, that is the EEZs of countries out to the 200 nautical mile limit, are protected, but only about 1.5% of high seas are protected. And most of the recent growth in the MPA area, if you see the blue and green lines in the graph at the bottom, are in national waters. And this is not surprising, since the global community has only recently agreed on a mechanism to protect areas beyond national jurisdiction through the High Seas Treaty, which is expected to enter into force in the near future. Fortunately, we know that protected areas are a proven tool for conserving biodiversity. And this picture of Yellowstone National Park in the US is in honor of the park's 150th anniversary in 2022. While marine protected areas do not have as long a history, we have been protecting places in the ocean for over 50 years. But ocean conservation is very different from areas on land for several reasons. The oceans is a commons with a long history of open access and use. And the ocean is vast, and many parts of it are remote, making it difficult to understand, protect, and restore. And the ocean is a connected, fluid environment with species and habitats connected by ocean currents. So we need to work together on ocean conservation, which is why these global and regional efforts are so important. So I'm going to talk about some common MPA challenges that I've heard about in my previous role at NOAA's Marine Protected Areas Center in the US and through working with other countries over the years. One is scaling up protection, and this is both in terms of the level of protection provided by an MPA and also the size of the MPA that need to be large enough and protective enough to accomplish their goals. The next is effective management. Effective management is a critical component of a 30 by 30 goal. And while there is a CBD target to report on MPA effectiveness, fewer than 20% of all protected areas report on it. So it's an area where we really need to do better in terms of holding ourselves accountable about how well we're doing in management. The third is climate change. It is affecting our whole ocean, but MPAs can be a key tool for mitigating and adapting to climate change. And then next, protecting places in a busy ocean means that we're not only focused on the MPAs themselves, but also on how they interact with nearby areas that affect their success. And the last is around transitioning from individual MPAs to networks. And that means that we need to step up our efforts to focus on connectivity among MPAs and how we can achieve more through ecological, social, and institutional networks. So this graph just shows you that ocean conservation occurs along a sliding scale or a continuum. And as we manage more actively, we can expect better outcomes. So having a clear purpose, good governance, sufficient regulation and monitoring, and understanding of ecosystem services, which are the benefits ecosystems provide to humans, all contribute to better conservation outcomes. So the next few slides talk about opportunities for improved conservation outcomes from our work to implement 30 by 30. And I'm going to start with highly protected areas. These can be difficult to establish because of existing uses like fishing and opposition from ocean users. But many scientific studies, as well as recent guidance like the MPA Guide, highlight the benefits of highly protected areas. They can create higher biomass, density, and species diversity in the protected area. They protect the bottom from disturbance, which means that critical habitats such as coral, sponge, and seagrasses are protected. Fish and invertebrates grow older and they have more offspring. And therefore, marine life can spill over from the MPA into outside areas, helping sustain those broader areas. And this graphic shows the increased offspring produced, and the numbers are exponentially higher. So you can see here the difference between a relatively small fish and a fish that is 60 centimeters long in terms of the number of young fish and larvae that they generate. And that means that large fish are very important for rebuilding fishery populations and helping to seed outside areas. The next opportunity is building capacity for effective management. We know that management capacity is critical to the success of an MPA or a network, and that most MPAs are not sufficiently funded and supported. So we need investment from countries and donor organizations in MPA management agencies and local communities for activities like management planning, enforcement, community engagement, and monitoring. And there's a lot of great guidance out there about what an effective protected area looks like, including IUCN's Green List standard. And one resource that you might want to look at is a document on MPA standards that was developed by IUCN, looking through all of the Green List standards and all of the past IUCN resolutions to look at a standards document that all MPAs should meet. And these include things like implementing monitoring to track performance and not allowing industrial activities in or next to an MPA. Another opportunity is climate adaptation and resilience. And I've talked a little bit about this earlier, but MPAs are really important places to build resilience to climate impacts because they are places where we can do long-term restoration and carbon storage, knowing that these places are under long-term management and that those efforts are more likely to succeed. They reduce local threats that help ecosystems withstand climate impacts. They attract research and monitoring to better understand these systems, and they provide opportunities to educate and engage the public around climate impacts and how the public can be involved in helping fight climate change. And restoration, I think, is closely related to the topic of climate change, because I think for a long time, we felt that it was not necessary to restore areas that were protected, that simply by protecting them, we were doing enough. But now we know that these large-scale impacts, such as fishing pressure and climate change, are so severe that we need to restore some of these ecosystems in order to maintain their functions. And this picture is of a diver removing purple sea urchins off the coast of California in order to allow kelp forests to return. So MPA managers are getting increasingly involved in restoration. And what's important is that restoration is done with the right species in the right places so that it can succeed, and that it takes current and future climate change impacts into account. Another opportunity is management or co-management with Indigenous and local communities. Indigenous peoples play a critical role in biodiversity conservation, and many countries are working to recognize or restore management authority by Indigenous peoples. And this type of management by Indigenous and local communities really builds on the Indigenous and local knowledge and that connection to the sea. Another opportunity is technology for ocean science and management, which is a huge topic all by itself, but it offers great opportunities to enhance ocean science and management. This picture shows how drones are used to tag whales in Stellwagen National Marine Sanctuary, which is less intrusive than getting the boat right up next to the whale. Another few examples of technology being used for MPA management include remote sensing to detect illegal fishing, eDNA to better understand species connectivity and presence in an area, and new techniques for coral restoration to outplant heat-resistant corals in MPAs. And then the last opportunity I wanted to talk about is integrating MPAs with marine spatial planning. We know that MPAs can't be successful if they're treated as separate from the rest of the ocean. Our 30 by 30 goal will only succeed if we can sustainably manage the other 70% of the ocean. So this map shows the successful effort to move the shipping lanes into Boston Harbor to avoid areas being heavily used by endangered whales. And these small dots represent years of monitoring data for the highly endangered northern right whale. And then the red coloring underneath shows total aggregation concentrations for all baleen whales. So you can see that where these heavy dots are and the red is where the whales are. And you can also see that this black line went through a heavy concentration of whales. This is the shipping lane. And what NOAA and the US Coast Guard were able to do based on all of this information was to actually move the shipping lane north to this dashed line to avoid the area of whale concentration. And this has led to a significant drop in ship strikes. So as renewable energy and other ocean uses expand, it will be increasingly important to do marine spatial planning and to ensure that conservation goals are considered along with ocean uses. And I have one more opportunity, which is the importance of transboundary and high seas cooperation. As I mentioned earlier, the ocean is a highly interconnected system. And so we need that cooperation across borders. And that might include regional networks of MPA managers, such as in the Mediterranean or the Caribbean or the Western Indian Ocean, that can help build capacity for regional conservation. And then, of course, the upcoming entry into force of the High Seas Treaty, which is a major milestone and will allow parties to propose areas in the high seas for MPA designation. So in closing, I just want to thank you for joining this webinar and for your work to implement 30 by 30. And I really look forward to listening to the case studies and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Lauren, for your expertise and for sharing those challenges and opportunities. We have a couple of minutes if anyone has any questions for Lauren. Unless I've missed something. I don't think so. Oh no, I see one hand. Heidi, do come in.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever folks are. Thanks so much, Lauren. That was a really helpful, excellent presentation. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the remote sensing techniques for monitoring fishing that you mentioned, sort of the ways that we use technology. Yeah, if there's any more to be said there, I'd be curious.
I'd be happy to briefly touch on it. I'm certainly not an expert in this, but there are organizations like Global Fishing Watch and others who are providing this satellite data in near real time. So it's very up to date and delivering it to managers to be able to take a look and understand where that fishing pressure is happening based on detections of signals from fishing vessels. And so we know that fishing vessels move in different ways than other types of maritime shipping, for example. And so we're able to detect ships that are likely to be involved in illegal activity when based on their movements and their location. And then that information is provided to the local management agency. There is a need for training, right? And the ability to manage this technology. And so I do think there are certainly challenges in using technology, but there are a lot of partners out there who are really interested in working with countries on that.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Thank you, Lauren, for a comprehensive response. I can't see any other hands, but we are bang on time to move through to our country case studies. We're very fortunate that 3 countries are providing their thoughts and expertise this afternoon in the UK, morning for others. And I will first hand over to Lasse from Finland. Over to you. Let's hope your slides work. I think they will.
Okay, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. My name is Lasse Kurvinen, working with state-owned protected areas here in Finland. And I will start sharing my screen. I hope everything's fine on your end. So I will be talking a little bit about how we are working with identifying valuable marine areas here in Finland. So we have these targets on protected areas. We have on a global level from the GBF that was mentioned, but we also have in Finland on a regional level, for example, from the EU biodiversity strategy, but also from the Baltic Sea, we have in a regional seas convention, we have also these similar targets on a still smaller level. So we are also working there at different spatial scales, but throughout these commitments, we need to think about where to designate these new areas. So one tool that we have been working with is the CBD EBSA tool, which is a scientific and technical exercise to identify ecologically or biologically significant marine areas. And for those who don't know, Finland is here in Northern Europe, and we can see that in the Baltic Sea, which is a brackish water fringe sea, we can see that there's also EBSAs that have been identified there. But they are quite large, so as such, they are not that useful for national protected area planning. And also when we look at things from a global aspect, usually the focus tends to shift elsewhere from Northern Europe, for example, because we have a different level of biodiversity in the tropics, but that doesn't mean that there would not be anything worth protecting in other areas as well. So we have had this underwater biodiversity mapping program in Finland called Velmu for 20 years now, where we have gathered data on habitats and species, for example, using different kind of methods depending on what kind of information we want. If we want habitat level information, we can use drop videos or echo sounding, but if we want species level information, then we need to do some sampling or dive transects. And we have covered quite well the Finnish coast, so we have now around 200,000 data points with several species observations per data point. But just to have a lot of data is not enough, so we have been working to synthesize the data for quite many years, and in 2018 the Finnish Environment Institute made this spatial conservation prioritization exercise with a program called Zonation to make this first marine environment value map for the Finnish coast. And we used that as a basis in our EBSA, in our national EBSA process. I will go into the details a bit later, but we were able to identify 87 significant marine areas in the Finnish coast. And this at this national level exercise, we were able to produce information that was used in the marine spatial plan that was done in 2020. So a little bit on the process. We have the CBD EBSA criteria, for example, uniqueness or rarity or importance for life history stages of species. So in the national exercise, we started with collecting all the data that we have, and then we did the modeling, which was the spatial prioritization. So then we got like a first set of seed areas that we started working with. And we had workshops with various experts who knew, for example, an area, or experts in marine geology, for example. And then we processed the information from these workshops and finally were able to make these area delineations. And here in the background, we also have the actual CBD EBSAs from the Baltic Sea. So we see that the spatial level is quite different. But then we started thinking on a more local scale that okay, we have these areas that are suitable for national level marine spatial planning, but they might not still be like fine enough to do protected area planning, because the Finnish archipelago is quite broken and a lot of coastline, so we need to look in a quite fine detail to establish protected areas. So we started working together with the cities of Helsinki and Espoo in the capital region, and we noticed that in the national work we only have a few of these valuable areas. But when we thought about in a similar fashion, that if we look at the global level, then for example the Baltic Sea is not like a high biodiversity area. So in the same sense, we were thinking that okay, maybe if we look in more detail at the local level, we might notice like something that we missed in this national exercise, and we then worked together with the municipalities, and we were able to delineate on this local level these valuable areas, and areas to expand their protected area networks on a local scale. And maybe this differed a bit from the national work, because we were also launching a field campaign, which we were planning together with the representatives from the cities and municipalities to gather more information on a finer spatial scale. And also in these workshops, we were then including also experts from the city's administrations, not just from the nature protection side, but also spatial planners and people working with fisheries there. And our idea was also not just to do a one-off exercise, but create a model that could be then used elsewhere in Finland, and why not other places of the world as well. And actually now this summer we are launching a field campaign in another area in the archipelago sea of Finland, working together with 10 municipalities and one city, and the end product would then be something similar like we did here in the capital region, that the municipalities could then use in their protected area planning. So just as concluding remarks, so we have found that this EPSA criteria and the process is quite useful tools, because you can scale it on different level and help to reach these global commitments working from local and regional levels, but also to work on this national coordinated efforts for mapping. We found also that this process is quite useful tool for that. Okay, thank you. I think that was all I had to say from that at this stage, and we can continue discussing in the breakout sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive overview of so many years worth of work that you've been carrying out. It's great to highlight the EPSA process as well, which sometimes can be somewhat overlooked. We will have time and space for questions to our speakers during the breakout groups. So I will hand straight over to Anjani, who's a senior research officer at the Marine Resilience Initiative in Tobago, for your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks. Just checking to see that you can hear me.
Yes.
So thanks, Jess. So I'm Angelina Nace. I'm a coral reef ecologist at the Institute of Marine Affairs in Trinidad and Tobago in the Southern Caribbean. I want to talk to you about a project that we've implemented. It's a 5-year project called the Marine Resilience Initiative Tobago, or MARIN Tobago for short. Just a bit of background about what the Institute of Marine Affairs does. We are an established body. We were established in the 1970s by the government, and we're mandated to conduct environmental monitoring and marine research around Trinidad and Tobago. We have 5 major focal areas of research, including biodiversity and ecology, which is the program I'm part of, but we also have oceanography and coastal processes and marine policy and governance, among others. So as I mentioned, we are responsible for monitoring and conducting environmental assessments and doing applied scientific research. And our role is basically to advise on policy development and effective management. So we work very closely with the management agencies present in Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm not going to go too much into this because I know Lauren has captured it so well, but in the Caribbean, specifically coral reefs, which is my specific background, over the last 50 years, coral reefs have undergone quite a transition between disease outbreaks impacting corals and marine organisms throughout the Caribbean to chronic issues of overfishing, coastal development, land-based sources and pollution, but also issues related to climate change. So since the 1990s to today, we've experienced global coral bleaching events in Tobago of varying intensities, but the trend is that our bleaching events are essentially becoming more frequent and severe, as we've seen over the last 2 years, where our reefs have experienced back-to-back bleaching between 2023 and 2024. Through our long-term monitoring, we've seen a decline in coral cover by 50%, so similar to like the global averages. And we do expect to see further decline into the future based on these episodic disturbance events. So the Marine Resilience Initiative is focused on our sister island of Tobago, the smaller and sweeter island of the two. We have 2 designated areas. So we have Buko Reef Marine Park, which is highlighted in pink in the southwest of Tobago, and it was established in the 1970s. And then we have a proposed marine protected area in the northeast of Tobago. And as you can see, it's a vast area around the island, and it encompasses many marine ecosystems. While there are designations for both of them, we are struggling to develop and enforce management plans. And so the IMA sees our role in sort of trying to build capacity in establishing conservation, especially in these areas. So the goal of the project is to conserve the marine biodiversity of Trinidad and Tobago's coral reefs, seagrass, and mangrove forests through 3 things: restoration, conservation, and stewardship. We have 3 main objectives, which is building sustainable ocean resilience, restoration of 2 critical ecosystems, so seagrasses and coral reefs, as well as building ocean stewardship. So the first objective, which is building sustainable ocean resilience, we see 2 ways in which 2 impacts that are important. So the development of a marine resilience network that encompasses both our management agencies, so our managers and stewards, and having a collaborative approach where we work together to build both social and sustainable resilience of Tobago's marine ecosystems. The second thing is developing an adaptive pathway for marine management, and this considers both the chronic issues of pollution and overfishing for long-term management, but then it incorporates the climate impacts of bleaching or other external disturbance events, and having a management plan specifically in response to that. So that includes strategies in recovery management. It may or may not include restoration, but it also, a big component of that is understanding the lessons learned from the disturbances and how we can adapt long-term management to consider the current state of our ecosystem, but also the communities that are dependent on it. Of course, for every management plan, there are critical needs, and it goes beyond sustainable finance. We realize it includes, a general engagement and inclusion at all levels, awareness of what's happening in our ocean backyard, political will, community will, having the technology, the capacity, and just having governance and stewardship. So through the Marine Resilience Network and through this project, we aim to sort of identify through our engagements, through surveys, data collection, what are the gaps in this pathway and what are the priority steps that we need to take to fill in these gaps. The second objective is developing our capacity in restoration for Tobago's marine biodiversity, and it focuses on two ecosystems, so coral reefs and seagrasses. So we are learning different strategies of restoration based on the type of disturbance we're experiencing. When it comes to climate change, we're looking to build genetic resilience. So looking at larval propagation, where we are growing coral from sperm and egg so that you create a more genetically diverse population for the future to build ecological resilience, and the same for seagrasses. The third objective is ocean stewardship. So this is a component which focuses on creating outreach and education. So finding out what people know and they don't know about their ocean backyards. As a scientific institution, we're collecting a lot of data from the communities, collating it and finding out, hey, what are the big gaps in knowledge? And so we want to be able to create educational tools or events or opportunities to fill those gaps of knowledge. We already see that protecting parrotfish is probably going to be a big issue, but also just understanding, what communities have in their backyards and how that can be used for sustainable tourism or responsible tourism and whatnot. And then, of course, including ocean science and knowledge in the classroom in a formal education. So it's not without its challenges. So we're grappling with climate change in real time, but what we're doing is we're sort of dealing with these disturbances. We're immediately applying it through the Marine Resilience Network in sort of an iterative manner to see, we already have an issue to deal with. Let's see how we can work it through and already learn our lessons through that process. So we were doing it with the bleaching event last year, but also we anticipate being impacted by stony coral tissue loss disease. So it's just sort of already using that network and that pathway to sort of implement these responses. So just acknowledging that it's more than IME, it's a partnership, acknowledging our funders, and yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your work, those innovative ideas, and 3 different kind of components of the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for offering to share that. Finally, we have a presentation from Colombia. From Cesar, who is online. Welcome, Cesar. I will hand straight over to you in the interest of time to share your presentation. Hopefully, you've got some slides to share.
Yeah, I got a
Perfect.
presentation.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit ahead.
We can see those.
So,
That's great.
you can
Thank
see, you
you.
can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Cesar. I work for the Colombian government as the worldwide known as a park ranger. So I work for the Institution of National and Natural Parks of Colombia, and especially of the Sanctuary of Fauna and Flora of Malpelo. We want to show one of the programs that we done for the park. And this one is the implementation of the prevention, surveillance, and control strategy at the sanctuary. So the context about this area, we are in the middle of the Colombian Pacific Ocean. This is the east region of the Pacific. And as you can see there, the sanctuary of Malpelo is a big square surrounded by other protected areas. And this is the best example of the very objectives of protection of the ocean, because the size of these areas were increased in the last decades, looking for this achievement. And you have to know that this part of the ocean is really special for the fishing of many species of commercial value, as tunas, as mahi-mahi, or sharks, because sharks are a fish that is consumed in Colombia and neighbor countries. And we have to work since many years before to try to impose the figure of conservation of this area. So you have to know that the Malpelo Sanctuary is a marine protected area since 1995. The actual area of the sanctuary is 481,500 sorry, 481,500 square kilometers. This is a really big area. And inside this area, there is a little island, less than 1 square kilometers, that is an oasis in the middle of this part of the ocean. In Malpelo, there is no fishing. There is no allow any kind of fishing activity. And there is no population or communities related to these areas. There are no people inhabiting these areas. There is an allowed activity that is the ecotourism, that means the diving, the scuba diving. And in Colombia is the first place for diving because it's full of sharks. So Malpelo is a UNESCO Heritage Site since 2006. It's part of the Green List. It's an area of importance for the conservation of birds, a blue park, and it's part of the CMART strategy corridor in this region of the world, in which we work together with other areas like Galapagos National Park or Cocos Island and other ones. So we got a management plan since July of the last year. And as I told you, we want to focus on the control and the surveillance, all related with the illegal fishing activity. So at the left, we got the situations 8 years ago. In 2017 was usual to see more than 40 fishing boats of this size, really small ones, around the island of Malpelo, Sanctuary. Well, they use these long lines and spinels to catch tunas, where some species of sharks, like silky sharks or hammerhead sharks, are also taken there. And the death toll of animals were more than the 75% in an area that's supposed to be in a totally protection status. So after 2018, we got a collaboration with an ONG that is called Biodiversity Conservation Colombia, in which they guarantee us the permanent presence of a catamaran in the island of Malpelo, and that's changed everything. So the amount of fishing boats in the area just crops, and also the fishing activity and the dead animals. So in some actually a few years ago, we got a really calm island where all the animals are protected, all the animals are respected, and this also made a really important, like, well, it's really important for the divers that go to this island all the year long to see all this initiative to take protection of the sharks. Well, this image also show, well, the importance of the working with this ONG and how they were just dropped the illegal activity in the area. And at last, I'm gonna show you this. As you see at the upper part of the page, this is one of the initiatives to take control and monitoring of illegal fishing. We work with this foundation, with this ONG, directly on the island. However, we got a complete system in which we also work with the Colombian Army and other Colombian authorities, in which if we make contact with an illegal fisher, we can take him. We just can continue the process to seize all the fish, to seize the boats, and even to send this illegal fisherman to the jail. That happens some weeks ago, in which 3 Ecuadorian fishermen were caught inside the area, and all this system works toward that. So we got a special support of the remote platforms to make a surveillance of all the area, of all this big area. And as I told you at last, we got a policy, we got a circular in which everyone worked together to make this happen to a punishment of this felony. And thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful progress and the importance of the monitoring and surveillance that you've been doing in that area. We're running ever so slightly over time, but at this point we will move to 3 breakout rooms. These 3 rooms, which will be available if you click the breakout rooms button, follow the 3 themes of the presentations we've heard today. So room 1 will be focused on planning, and Farah from the Global Ocean Alliance UK team will be there to facilitate that room. Room 2 will be on management and resilience, and another colleague from the HAC, Maggie, will be there to facilitate that room. And then the 3rd will be on monitoring and enforcement, and Des Moines will be facilitating the 3rd room. You can choose the room you would like to join, and the 3 presenters will, or I hope, will join the room that's most relevant to the presentation they just gave. So Finland, room 1, Trinidad and Tobago, room 2, and then Colombia, room 3. I hope that makes sense to everyone. Please do pick a room, and we will come back at 1/4 the hour or just afterwards for a reporting back interactive session. I hope that makes sense. Please do pick a room. Thank you.
Hi, Demona. Hi, Roxana.
Hi, Therese. Hi, Roxana.
Hi. Good morning.
Going to wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes for others to join. at least to have Cesar with us. Hi, Cesar. And hi, Catherine.
Well, hello.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Very interesting. Let's wait maybe 1 minute for others to join. I see that we still have 14 people that haven't joined the rooms. So let's wait just 1 minute. Hi, Sylvain. So maybe we can start, and the way we are going to do these breakout rooms, it's on monitoring and enforcement. So we're going to ask if you have any question for Cesar first. Like we can start with that, and then you can also reflect back on if the activities or what Cesar presented can be applied or can be also implemented in your own country. And yeah, we can do that. So yeah, let's start with if you have any question for Cesar. And because we are quite a small group, just jump in or open your mic.
Sana?
Sí.
Roxana, I think we hear some
Cesar?
background noise from your side.
Excuse me?
We hear some background noise from your side, Roxana.
Oh. My,
Roxana, ¿te escucha un sonido de fondo?
sí, es que estoy en la oficina y hay ruido.
Podrías preguntar, yo te entiendo y tal vez.
Mira, yo
Or maybe you
quisiera
can
saber.
mute. You can
Sí,
mute
César,
yourself.
me parece, lo que puedo preguntar así concretamente es que nosotros estamos en un proceso de trabajar el 30 por 30 marino, pero para nosotros nos hemos comprometido con el 10, porque es un sector muy, pero muy difícil y me sorprende la manera como ustedes han logrado que esa la zona marina no pesquen, porque nosotros solo hemos logrado reservas donde hacen la misma pesca, ¿no? Pero es reserva. Entonces, esa experiencia de negociación, ¿qué incidencia política tuvo? ¿Qué trabajo de convencimiento tuvieron? ¿Cuál fue la varita mágica? Porque en verdad es muy duro. Gracias.
Roxana, disculpa, ¿qué país?
Perú.
Perú. Well, to everyone, Roxana is asking me how the Colombian government make this possible, how they negotiate with all the interest in the ocean uses. In their case, in Peru, they want to achieve, well, they try to achieve the 10% of that 30 because it's really difficult for them to take more, yeah, to make a conservation figure of more than 10%. I want to say that Colombia is, I will say that Colombia is a fertile soil for conservation. It's also happening in land where many ecosystems and many areas are in conservation status right now. And especially the Pacific Ocean of Colombia have been a place of underdevelopment. So we don't get many industrial fishing activities looking for these resources. We are more in at the level of artisanal fishing activity of this coastal and marine area. And the Colombian government just make these statements of protected areas, of big areas, because they are not recognitions of uses over communities, over industries, because our law is like that. We got like a protectional laws since the base, like a legal basis. So the Colombian government just declared all these big areas because the impacts on species like the hammerhead sharks and all that we don't know about this underwater ecosystem and all these seamounts that are in these areas. That was the argument for the government to make this statement. And it was imposed. It was imposed over other activities. And that's why have been kind of complex the work of taking away all this fishing activity, however, not fishing industry outside of the areas. And we got the important support of the Colombian army. Without them, these seizures, this punishment over the illegals can't be done because the park rangers in Colombia doesn't have that power of take someone and make we don't get this enforcement power. We don't carry guns. We don't have any military support that is really respect here in Colombia when one of these warships just take the laws directly to the in the area. Well, this is really difficult. The amount of resources, talking about money, is really important each year, and we depend a lot on that. So if we don't keep this enforcement, the area is going to be just again full of fishing activity. These animals will be more in danger than they are now. So I think that Colombia is an special place for doing this. The institution of National Natural Parks of Colombia is, if in the mind of the people and the country, as a figure to respect, as a figure that give us many environmental services.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is adequate circumstance that allow this, because other countries in the Americas, they're having a difficult negotiation about this. And I have known about the position in countries in Europe or maybe of America, where it's not possible to be that kind of strict rule over the ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you, Cesar. And Roxana wrote another question in the chat. Maybe you can see it. And I see also Felipe. Felipe, please just open your mic. I don't know if you want to add something from what Cesar said, as you're also from Colombia. But maybe just one question from my side, and I don't know, Felipe, if you can also answer that, is when you talk about the government, are you talking about which level? Is it the president that really pushes it, or more at ministerial level to have all those collaboration between army, like police, fishing industry, conservation sector together? Yes, Felipe first, and then Cesar also can write on the chat the responses.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you very much, Cesar, for the presentation. It was very good, concise, and charismatic as well. And thank you, Domoina, and all the HAC members for joining and for giving this space for the conversation. I would like to just compliment a little bit Cesar with his intervention and answer a little bit what you were saying. But, well, first of all, Cesar has most of the knowledge because he works as a park ranger inside of Malpelo. I work far away from Bogota, so I have a less valid perspective than his. But I can share a little bit of a couple of thoughts about this. Malpelo has also struggled a lot to achieve, and answering Roxana's question, to achieve an international positioning. Thanks to this positioning with UNESCO World Heritage, with Green List, with Blue Parks, with many things, and specifically with the process that Malpelo is in this moment to become a biosphere reserve, that has enabled Malpelo to gain more weight inside of the national discussions and international discussions. Hence, the catamaran that Cesar was speaking about was possible to achieve with the support of an NGO. If it was not for this catamaran, many things would not happen. So Malpelo in this moment is relying in a good proportion with the support of the international partnerships. This is really important for us because our international allies have pushed Malpelo to achieve the biggest achievements in their history. But on the other hand, Malpelo has worked really strong to achieve all these alliances in the national level. More than the president, more than directly the ministers doing all this work is the park superintendent or the park chief with her team, with the teams in Bogota, in the deputy direction of protected area management, who begin to make many of the alliances with, for example, the Navy, as was Cesar saying. They're one of our principal allies. Without them, many things wouldn't happen. But there's still many things to happen more with the government of the department where Malpelo belongs to. We have a little bit more work to be done with the national authorities of fishing. There's a little bit more, so we can push a little bit more. And here is where the international partnerships help us a lot. For example, financing workshops and financing some things that allow us to build up more this mainstreaming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felipe. We don't have a lot of time left, but I would like to hear also from the participants if you have similar solutions or challenges, and like from your country, because we have maybe just 5 minutes, so if you can be brief, like sharing where you're from, what kind of solutions or questions maybe that you have regarding monitoring and surveillance, and how you can relate to that, I would say, special case of Malpelo. Yeah, any comment, questions? Yes, Faris.
Paris.
Yes, thank you, Damoyna, and thank you, Cesar and Felipe. The presentation is great. I learned a lot, and not much to share. Maybe just to mention that Canada supports the CMAR and specifically monitoring surveillance remotely as support from our dark vessel detection program under my department, Fisheries and Oceans Canada. I don't have the details, so this is really useful as an example. And I know there are other organizations and partners that support the work. Something that I learned recently, and I was wondering if there's any specific engagement or involvement or collaboration with the Saving Blue Five or Big Five project, which is a collaboration between Costa Rica, and Panama, Ecuador, Colombia, and I think a couple of other countries, maybe Chile and Peru, because the focus is again on the migratory species and specifically the Big Five marine species. Yeah, just wondering if there's Malpelo, if you're involved or Malpelo is playing a big part in that by any chance.
Well, Faris, as I understand you, yeah, Malpelo is making part of this Blue Five initiative. However, we got many support from the Green List, from the CMAR. Maybe the areas around Malpelo that doesn't have too many years of statement and they are just starting. Maybe this Blue Five is the best strategy for them to start them to make their management plan, their activities, especially because these areas, they allow the sustainable fishing, so they have a lot of work to do. Yeah, Malpelo is there. However, we got the charts to show to the Blue Five. However, as I told you, the sister areas that are really important also because our nursery areas for sharks or feeding sites for sharks, feeding habitats for sharks, and other big animals in the ocean like whales and turtles. That is a better option for them than us. Okay.
Muchas gracias.
And maybe to answer everyone with this question of Roxana, we got an important diving activity in Malpelo. However, the money that we receive from this activity is not used for the illegal fishing control. We need a lot more money in this work. The ONG with hundreds of millions for international donors allowed to make this possible. That's why Felipe told about find more financial strategies because the cost of this work is really, really high each year.
Thank you so much, Cesar. I know we can have longer discussions on like implementation and those challenges. But I think you provided a very good case of importance of international cooperation and the labels that Malpelo has. That is quite a compelling. Sometimes it's quite a process to have like green list, blue park award, but we can see the results now. Thank you again for sharing. Thank you, everyone. We can now leave the breakout room and we'll head to the main room. Yeah, see you there.
Hello, welcome back. I will not say anything too important until everyone is back in the room, but I think we're trickling back through. Apologies for those I had to cut off. I hope there were some really good discussions in the rooms. I did manage to briefly stop by all of the rooms. So thank you very much. Thank you to our facilitators for managing those discussions, and thank you to our country experts as well, who were available to answer questions, I know. For the next sort of 8 minutes or so, before our closing remarks, we will just do a bit of a report back. I'm happy for the facilitators to share some of the key points that came out in their breakout rooms today, but also we've set up what's called an easy retro board, which Demoina is showing already, and I'm about to share a link for in the chat, where you can type some of the thoughts you had, some of the discussion points that were made in your breakout rooms just now. And it also means you can see some of the topics that were raised in the rooms that you weren't able to be in as well. So let me just put the link in here. Do start typing in some of your thoughts and discussion points. Would any of our facilitators like to just share some of the points that came up in your rooms?
Maybe I can start. Is it okay? Yeah. Thank you. So we were room 3 on monitoring and enforcement, discussing the case of Malpelo in Colombia. And one of the things that really we discussed on how Colombia, that site specifically, was able to gather a lot of support because of the international designations, like being a IUCN Green List, UNESCO Reserve, also as a blue park, and that really helped gathering the support from other sectors like the army, the police, and we discussed that importance of national collaboration, but supported by international partners and collaborations. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Demoina. That sounds like a great discussion. If you're able to type in some of those thoughts into the retro board, we will make sure we capture them for future reference. Maggie or Farah, did you want to share any key points, or did anyone else who was attending one of the breakout rooms wish to share anything to the rest of the group?
I'm just typing a few things on the board, but maybe Anjani can add to that.
I lost my unmute button. Yeah, I think a lot of what you wrote on the board is the importance of developing local partnerships among government agencies as well as NGOs, civil societies, but also regional and international collaborations, the importance of that. I also noted the challenges of of management or, effective management as you go further from your coastline. So more into EEZ and into the sort of the deeper ocean habitats. What else? Not sure. I think also, I think there's a need, maybe an opportunity for sharing resources of learning through the platform, whether it's after or whatnot, to share, resources in the management process or the data collection or whatnot of anything new or existing.
Thank you. There's lots of thoughts coming through on the board for your room. So it sounds like it was a really, really good discussion. I know when I dipped in for a moment, there were some good points being made. Anyone from room 1 wish to share any thoughts?
Yeah, I can mention a couple of things, and then perhaps if Lasse or someone else wants to add anything, please do. We talked about the importance of long-term data sets. That's been really, really valuable in Finland in particular to enable their understanding of the areas of importance around their coastline. The critical importance of stakeholder engagement and the balance of when to do that. It can be a challenge in terms of ensuring that you've got, particularly for government-led sites, where you have a top-down approach, perhaps to start with, to ensure it's very scientifically focused, but then really engaging the community and wider stakeholders when it comes to anything that's going to impact people on the ground, and utilising their knowledge is also really key. The challenge of financing these types of data collection and needing to be a bit innovative about how you go about that, perhaps not owning your own vessels and doing large-scale surveys, but opportunistic monitoring. Lasse, was there anything else you wanted to add, or anyone else in the room wanted to jump in?
No, maybe a bit on the financing. So that is a really important issue, and of course something that will probably be more important in the future. How to create like cost efficient models of doing things, because I don't see that the funding will be increasing in the future anytime soon. So we need to be quite innovative, and also I think cooperation is key, and that's one of the reasons that our mapping program has been quite successful, that we have so many different organizations working together there, and we can then find synergies and benefit from each other than if everyone would just do their thing separately.
Thank you. Thank you to the facilitators. Thank you, everyone, for actually splitting yourselves almost evenly across the 3 rooms, which was a bit of a miracle. I will just lastly hand over to Thora, who's my colleague in the UK team, just to wrap up and also signpost to a few upcoming opportunities as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for your engagement in the breakout rooms, and also thank you to our wonderful speakers from the countries, and also Lauren. Thank you very, very much. It's very appreciated. Over to you, Farah.
Thank you, Jess. I'll try not to be too long. Just a massive thank you to everyone who's participated, from the speakers, the participants as well, and to the High Ambition Coalition for co-hosting this with the Global Ocean Alliance. I took quite a lot away from this session. It's been really great to hear experience from the countries directly, in terms of with 3 excellent case studies around identifying areas of importance, the importance of networks in terms of determining what management actions could be needed to build resilience, and the implementation of a control and surveillance strategy, which I think is one of the biggest challenges, is actually how do we monitor and enforce what is happening in these sites once they're in place. So a hugely valuable set of experiences here, and massive thanks to Lauren for setting the scene at the beginning in terms of the importance of MPAs in global ocean conservation and why they're important to people, and the big challenge we have given where we currently are at only just over 8%. We've got quite a long way to go, but you really highlighted some of the great opportunities that are presented in terms of technology and scaling up protection. So I think we should all embrace this challenge, and hopefully sessions like this can help spur some ideas amongst participants. So thank you all very much. We will be sharing some follow-up materials from this. The session has been recorded, so we'll make that available to participants and those who were not able to join. A reminder of the High Ambition Coalition's 30 by 30 Solutions Toolkit, which has been developed in partnership with a few other organizations. That toolkit contains a huge number of resources on 30 by 30 MPA implementation, and we'll make sure that some of these resources are also captured on that site. We are also looking to do some future sessions across the HAC and/or the GOA in terms of webinars and workshops, including reporting, OECMs, conservation finance. So please do keep your eye out for those in future. And of course, one big moment that's coming up that we were all very aware of is the United Nations Ocean Conference that takes place in Nice in a little over a month, probably the biggest ocean-focused event this year. There'll be a huge number of events there that I know will be of great interest to everyone here. So we do invite you to share your events with the two networks of the HAC and the GOA to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on. I will just mention one that Lauren has shared today, which is for the Blue Nature Alliance, who will be launching their scaling MPA capacity to reach 30 by 30 community of practice at an event at UNOC, which will really capture the experience of over 100 different capacity building experts and give participants a chance to interact with those discussions as well. So we'll ensure that more communications are sent out about that event. And if you have any specific questions, we can put you in touch with Lauren. The HAC will also be running events at the UNOC as well. I'm sure that will be of interest to everyone. And that's particularly of note in terms of the launch of their new Rapid Assistance Fund, which I will just pass to Maggie just to quickly explain to everyone, because it's quite an exciting moment. So over to you, Maggie.
Thank you so much, Farah, for giving me 1 minute. I will be very quick, but it is something brand new and exciting for you guys. So it's called the Rapid Deployment Mechanism. And it is a small grant fund that aims to support developing countries that are member of the HAC, fast track their implementation of 30 by 30. So we're planning to award 10 small grants. Each will be between $25,000 and $50,000. And these grants will be issued to local non-government organizations, NGOs, that work closely with governments and government agencies. So the application window it's actually open now, and it will close June 28th. So I definitely encourage to look it up and contact me to enter an application. I'm going to put in the chat the website here for the HAC, and you cannot miss it. It's right at the top, and you'll find my contact information, email, more information about the process of applying. So please do not hesitate. I'm Maggie. I'm the manager for this RDM, as we call it. So I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Very, very fast. Very impressed. Really exciting tool, and I hope that countries can engage with that as soon as possible. So just a final word from me. I know we're a couple of minutes over. Sorry, Jess. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a really, really great event. I'm really pleased to have had you all participate here. I hope you gained something from it. And I hope that we'll be doing similar events in the future. So just from myself in the Global Ocean Alliance team, and from Des Moines and team for the HAC, just a big thank you to everyone, and wishing you all very well. Hope to see you all at UNOC.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank
Bye, everyone.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.